Welcome to This Week in Crowder College, an in-depth look into how Crowder College students, faculty, and staff are working together so students soar to new heights, communities are impacted, and lives are changed. This Week in Crowder College is sponsored by the law offices of Wood and Peterson in Neosho, specializing in workers' compensation, personal injury, Social Security disability, and more. Learn more online at neoshoattorney.com. Now here's this week's edition of This Week in Crowder College.
Welcome to a brand new week of This Week in Crowder College right here on 91.7 FM. Adam Winkler here with you. This week we are privileged to be joined by Dr. David Schieffler. He is a social science instructor out there at Crowder College. And David, thank you for being with us.
Adam, thanks so much for having me.
Well, excited to talk with you, and a lot of cool things happening out there at Crowder College. And we don't get to dive into the social sciences department very often, but we're glad we get to today. Tell us about the upcoming Civil War Symposium, the speaker that's coming to Crowder College, and what that's all about.
Well, some of your listeners may be aware that this symposium has been going on for about a year, and it was created by the Social Science Division led by Dr. Dina Clymer to commemorate an amazing gift that we received last year, courtesy Dr. Daniel Sutherland, a longtime history professor, professor of Civil War at the University of Arkansas, who was actually a doctoral advisor for Dr. Clymer and myself. He retired at the U of A and was looking to get rid of his personal library before moving abroad, and he offered that personal library to Crowder. And so Dr. Clymer and I spearheaded efforts in conjunction with the Lee Library at Crowder and their staff to process this just amazing collection that we're calling the Daniel E. Sutherland Civil War Era Collection. It has mostly been processed. It's in the Lee Library. It can be accessed by anybody in the public as well as folks on campus. And to honor Dr. Sutherland and to commemorate that collection, we created this symposium. And thus far, we have had 3 scholars of the Civil War come and deliver lectures on campus in the Wright Auditorium here in Neosho. And our 4th speaker of the series will be speaking on March the 9th, next week at 6 p.m. His name is Dr. Chris Huggard. He teaches down at Northwest Arkansas Community College, and he is an environmental historian who late in his career has started to dabble in Civil War history and is in the process of writing a book about the Pea Ridge campaign, which your listeners are probably familiar with. Big battle that happened in 1862 in Northwest Arkansas, involved a number of troops from Missouri. And Dr. Huggard is going to speak about this book that he's working on. The book is going to be about the Pea Ridge campaign, looking at it through an environmental history lens. What role did nature play in the outcome of the battle? And then also about the efforts to preserve the Pea Ridge battlefield. And so when it's all said and done, it's going to be a big book. And I think Dr. Huggard is the guy to write it. He's also a really charismatic presenter. So I anticipate it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, that's March the 9th. 6 p.m. in the Wright Auditorium at Crowder in Neosho.
Well, with this Civil War era collection, just tell me about the things that people have been able to learn from just this marvelous gift to Crowder College.
Yeah, so this collection, and I don't have the numbers to back up what I'm about to say, but my hunch is it is the most comprehensive Civil War era collection in our region. It contains a wide array of different kinds of books about the war, including a large number of primary sources, things that were written, of course, by people at the time. Among those primary sources, we have the entire 128 volumes of what are called the official records of the War of the Rebellion. Simply put, after the war, the federal government went through this major effort to collect all of the correspondence that occurred between some of the commanding officers for both the United States and Confederate forces, and they compiled them in this massive collection, and we've got the entire collection here at the Lee Library. In addition to that, letters, diaries, you name it, stuff written by participants, and then a large number of secondary sources, things written by modern historians about the era. So I would really invite any listeners who want to come conduct research on the Civil War era to come to the Lee Library and check out this collection. The speakers have not spoken explicitly about the collection. Mm-hmm. They've addressed topics in their expertise.
Right.
But come on out, check out the collection, and please come and hear Dr. Huggard on March 9th.
Well, as you've gotten to probably look through the collection, is there something that stood out to you, just an interesting tidbit or fact that you learned about that was just one of those mind-blowing things for you?
Nothing mind-blowing that I have found yet, although I'll mention to you, I'm working on a book myself, mm-hmm. and in the process of conducting research, let me tell you how cool it was to be able to walk upstairs in McDonald Hall, Farber Hall, on Crowder's campus, and borrow a number of books that I needed for my own research.
Yeah.
I anticipated having to visit other libraries, borrow a bunch of books via interlibrary loan. But let me tell you, I was able to find a lot of what I needed right here. How cool is that?
That is great. And Crowder College is blessed to have this gift over there at the Lee Library. And besides these symposiums, you guys have some Civil War topic classes coming up this fall. And tell us about those.
We do. In the fall of 2023, I will be teaching a special topics course on Tuesday and Thursday afternoon at 1 o'clock. And the course is called The American Civil War Era. Would encourage any listeners who are interested to explore the possibility of enrolling in that. Just to give you a little more idea about what the class will be like, I call it the Civil War Era because we will look at the 20-30 year period before the war in an attempt to try to investigate what caused it. We'll learn about the course and conduct of the war itself, including investigating why the United States defeated the Confederacy. And then we'll also look at the post-war Reconstruction period and look at the federal government's efforts to try to bring the country back together, literally reconstruct it, as well as deal with and create a coherent policy for the approximately 4 million former slaves who are now freed. And there were all sorts of questions about how exactly they would be incorporated into the body politic. And so the course is really about before, during, and after the war. It is primarily a lecture course, but I don't want listeners to think that it's a kind of course where the professor just stands at the front of the room and talks at students. It's more of an active lecture format. I like back and forth with students. I love being interrupted with questions and comments, and then just sort of taking it in the direction that the class wants to take it. In addition to the lecture, there will also be a number of designated discussion days that students will have to do some readings to prepare for, both primary and secondary source readings. Technically, it's a sophomore level class, but truth be told, it's probably a little bit more advanced than that topically. That said, there are no prerequisites. You don't have to have any particular knowledge to take the course. The only thing I ask is that you have a desire to learn more about the Civil War era that I think is absolutely essential to know about if you want to understand the United States that we live in today.
David, thank you so much for being with us on This Week in Crowder College.
Adam, thanks so much for having me, and thank you to your listeners for being interested in what's going on at Crowder. You know, we're proud to be a part of this community, and we want to involve members of the community on our campus as much as possible.
Thank you for listening to This Week in Crowder College. This Week in Crowder College is sponsored by the law offices of Wood and Peterson in Neosho. You can listen to this broadcast again by going online to kneo.org or to crowder.edu. Tune in once again next week for another edition of This Week in Crowder College on KNEO 91.7 FM.